United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. Today is November 12th, 2019. Can I have a roll call?
Missouri? Here. Basil?
Here.
Whalen?
Here.
Caprows?
Here.
Meyer? Here. Kraus?
Here.
Do you have the minutes from October 28th? Are there any changes? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second? Any questions? Roll call.
Missouri? Yes. Basil?
Yes.
Whalen?
Yes.
Caprows?
Yes.
Meyer? Yes. Kraus?
Yes.
Anyone from the audience wish to address the board? The village clerk has no report, so we'll go to the commission's beautification commission. Trustee Connor. I'm sorry, not Trustee Connor. Mayor, he's not here. They got a meeting Thursday at 9 o'clock in the morning. Did that once before, Karen. Anyways, 4th of July commission. Trustee Meyer.
Meeting next Tuesday here at 6:30.
Youth commission. Trustee Missouri.
We have Nerf Wars this Sunday. Looks like there's about 91 kids registered, so we're pretty excited. And as always, our meetings are the third Wednesday of the month here at the Village Hall at 7:30. If you'd like to join us. That's all I have.
Historic preservation. Trustee Whalen.
The only thing I have is that we have a meeting this next Wednesday, 6 o'clock at the depot,
From tomorrow or tomorrow?
a week from tomorrow.
In my report, there's a resolution for the amendment to Senate Bill 616. We no longer need that because everything changed today and I have no idea what they're doing. Reminder that there's a public hearing on November 21st at 7 p.m. at the Township Center for the sales of recreational cannabis. And Finance and Administration Committee. Trustee Basil.
Okay, motion for the treasury report, Donna?
Okay, the total in the village accounts is $3,342,474.90. The total in the commission reports, or commission accounts, is $196,668.76. The total of all accounts combined, $3,539,143.66. The total in general at October month end, $880,579.02. We are still receiving 2% interest from First Community on all of our accounts. The total interest earned for October, $5,677.80, making it a total fiscal of $31,818.48. The total of the commission non-AP payments for the month of October, $353,806.70. A little higher than normal. We had 3 payrolls in October. And if there's no questions, that would be the end of my report.
I know it'll show up on next month's report, but we did pay off that 2002 water tank loan.
Exactly, yes.
That occurred probably last week, right?
Yes.
So that $1 million in debt's gonna go down a little bit. I think it was $268,000. Pay that off.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion approving the treasurer's report and report of financial activities for the prior month.
The motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second? Any questions? Roll call.
Kraus?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yes.
Caprows?
Yes.
Whalen?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Missouri?
Yes.
Okay, approval of the bills for the prior month. They were all sent out last week. There's only 3 additions. ComEd for $85,1142. I think Hall 1 for $3,186.62, and then I believe it's Verizon Wireless for $1,280.71. That's the additions. So if there isn't any questions, I'd like to approve the bills for the prior month for $87,865.56.
Motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second? Any questions? Roll call.
Missouri?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Waring?
Yes.
Caprows?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
Okay, the next item is the audit, and Anthony Savelli from Sickich is here. You want to just go over the audit with us?
Absolutely, yes, please, thank you. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Sickich, thank you for the invitation to be here before you this evening to present the results of our audit. This is as of your fiscal year ended April 30th, 2019. This again, as you know, is our first year doing the village's audit. Did run into some logistical challenges completely on Sickich's end for that, which was why the delay in the audit was pushed back a little bit from your normal timing on that for this year. So you have my apologies for that. My assurance is that these were things that were some first year challenges in the process on that and would not be expected to be recurring issues for us, certainly in that end. So before you tonight, you have two documents, the annual financial report as well as our auditor's communication to the village board. If you have the audit or the annual financial report with you, I will start there. If you turn to page 1 of that document with me. Page 1 is printed on Sickich letterhead, titled the Independent Auditor's Report. I'll call to your attention a few items on this first page. Management is ultimately responsible for the fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Our responsibility as auditors is outlined in the next section to express an opinion on your financial statements based on our audit conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. On the next page, you see the opinion section. I'm pleased to present this evening that we've issued a clean, unmodified opinion on the village's financial statements as of and for your fiscal year ended April 30th, 2019. That clean, unmodified opinion is the highest level of assurance that we can provide as auditors. It means that in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles. So we want to congratulate you for the receipt of that unmodified opinion. The next paragraph, the change in accounting principle paragraph, 2 paragraphs noted there. The first one relates to the implementation of a new pronouncement from the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, statement number 75, which relates to accounting and financial reporting for your post-employment benefits other than pension. While the village does not have much going on in this realm, there was a calculation required on that because state statutes under the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, or IMRF, require the village to allow someone to stay on the village's insurance post-retirement there. So that's what drives this liability, the creation of this liability for that. So that's a new pronouncement that was effective for fiscal year 19. The next paragraph notes that we did have some prior period adjustments that we noted in conjunction with our audit. Oftentimes when you have a change in audit firms there are certain things that are uncovered during that process there. Not huge dollar amounts on there, nothing of major significance there, but a few things that we did clean up just from a reporting standpoint for the village on that. From there, if you'll turn back 2 pages to page MD&A 1, this is the management's discussion and analysis. If you're looking at this report and looking for the somewhat executive summary, if you will, in this document, the management discussion and analysis, or MD&A, is where you want to focus your attention on that. It includes information both from fiscal 19 as well as comparative information from fiscal 18. Most importantly, in my opinion, includes the explanations from the village management as to why those numbers have changed from one year to the next. So it provides some nice context in terms of the numbers that are presented within this report. From there, if you'll turn with me past the pages with the MD&A pagination, and you'll come to a regular page number 4. On pages 4 and 5, this is your statement of net position. So the statement of net position is presented in what's referred to as the economic resources measurement focus and the full accrual basis of accounting. This means any of your capital assets as well as any of your long-term liabilities are presented here, intended to present a long-term economic perspective as to how the village is doing. You'll see 3 columns on here: your governmental activities, this is your general fund, your other tax-supported funds, your business type activities, your water, sewer, and refuse, and then your total column there on the 3rd column there. On the bottom of page 5, the net position section, this is your equity, your unrestricted net position as of April 30th, 2019 for your governmental activities was $265,648. For business type activities, $1,162,000, for a total of $1.4 million there. Again, the unrestricted net position for your governmental activities, it is skewed downward if you were to look at your report from 5-10 years ago, you would have seen a higher number there, primarily related to the implementation of these GASB Statement 68 on the IMRF pension liabilities, as well as now with GASB 75 on those OPEB liabilities.
And in GASB 75, I believe they gave us 291,000 unfunded liability. I believe that's what that was for the health insurance, which is purely hypothetical. Really.
Right, it's all based on an actuarial calculation and various assumptions in terms of that, so. Then on pages 6 and 7, this is the statement of activities. This is your long-term income statement. We're gonna focus on the bottom of page 7, the right side there. The change in net position for the year, your governmental activities had a slight decrease in net position of 81,568. Your business type activities, 19,221. For the village as a whole, just under 101,000 from a change in net position there. Pretty static year, all things considered, from an operations standpoint there. The couple lines below, you'll see the change in accounting principle. That's related to GASB Statement 75, that OPEB liability. So that was a total liability opening equity adjustment of 282,000. The prior period adjustment of 65,000, the line below. Turning from there to the next page. Your balance sheet for your governmental funds. GASB requires a major fund presentation, so both your general and joint fuel funds are what calculate as major funds for the village. General fund, one figure to look at there that I would like to point out, your third line from the bottom in that general fund column is your unassigned fund balance. These are the amounts available in your general fund for future operations as of April 30th, 2019. So that 472,545 is about 18% of your fiscal year 19 expenditures that you had in the general fund there. Kind of in that 20% range is a good healthy range in terms of that fund balance amount there. So kind of where we'd expect that to be, anywhere from a benchmark standpoint, kind of looking anywhere from, for April 30th year ends, anywhere kind of 15 to 30%. So you're within that expectation of where we see from a fund balance standpoint. From there on page 10, excuse me. This is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for your governmental funds. I should mention these are on what we call the current financial resources measurement focus on the modified accrual basis of accounting. So those capital assets and long-term liabilities that were on those front schedules have been removed from these presentations. The net change in fund balance for your general fund had a drawdown of 136,325. Your joint fuel fund was essentially break even at 4432. Your non-major governmental funds, which you can find more detail on further back in the report, had an increase of 59,853. So a total decrease in net, or your fund balance of 80,904. In the current year, that was offset by the prior period adjustment of 65,000. So net change of only about $15,000 for your governmental fund balances this year.
Go back to the general, the change in that position was what on the cash basis, or the cash?
So outside of before transfers there, the cash basis numbers, I don't have.
Okay, what was that number of change in that position on general?
136,000.
Okay, 100 of that I believe was the building. So I think we used reserves to buy the building at 533 read.
Yeah, if you're looking at that page, there's a number in the middle there, which is your excess or deficiency of revenues over expenditures. So you had 70,000 or 71,000 essentially prior to any of the transfer activity that was going in, and then you had your transfers of 25,000 coming in and then 90,000 coming out, which is more detail in the
For
notes.
capital equipment, sinking fund and stuff.
Correct. From there, if you'll turn to page 13. Page 13 is your statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position for your proprietary funds. So this is your water and sewer fund and your refuse fund, as well as the presentation is here for the capital equipment replacement fund, your internal service fund. Water and sewer for the year had a slight decrease in net position, 25,000. Refuse of 6,395 increase. Again, net increase or net decrease for the enterprise funds combined, just over 19,000. Capital equipment replacement, essentially flat as expected there, about 1,760 in terms of the amounts going there.
So on water and sewer, you're including the debt and the capital accounts.
Correct, so on page 12, all of the changes in the portions of those IMRF liability as well as the OPEB liability are included in those amounts, that's correct. From there in the audit, you'll turn with me to page 44. Page 44 is the schedule of changes in the village's net pension liability and related ratios for the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. This is presented on a December 31st basis, which is what IMRF's IMRF is a calendar year end, so that's the information that they provide for this. So as of December 31st, 2018, the line kind of towards the bottom third there, your net pension liability as of December 31st, 2018 was $704,818. Now last year, December 31st, 2017 numbers, you actually had a net pension asset of $53,685. In terms of what drove the change in those amounts there, there's really two components. First, in the total pension liability section at the top of the page, your changes in assumptions. So the IMRF plan went from a 7.5% assumed rate of return to 7.25%.
Now it's gonna go to 7.
Yes.
Ouch.
And then in the plan fiduciary net position section, your net investment income there, if you look at that third line, 2017 IMRF had a incredible year from an investment standpoint. You made almost $750,000 on the village's port balances with IMRF. 2018, particularly December 18, saw the market not be very favorable to that, so about a $1 million swing in investment income there. So that's why you went from that 101% funded status to about 88% funded as of December 31st, 2018. 88% funded on a defined benefit pension plan. You're still very well funded on that plan there. Even with the magnitude of that changes there, wouldn't expect you to see significant changes in terms of your IMRF required contribution right now.
The big difference though is if they drop it to 7, which I think they're gonna do, that'll probably cost us 2 points on the employer rate.
Correct. The continued, that investment rate that they're looking at there, that's the piece that has the most potential for impact to you from a budgetary.
They really don't want you to drop below 80% funded.
80% is kind of that benchmark, that target there. Certainly you're well positioned on that as well for that. So, any questions on the annual financial report for now? If not, I'll just highlight for you a few items in the.
We should go over the deficiencies.
Yes,
I think that's
yes.
very important, because we're very public about
Absolutely.
our need to be better.
So our auditor's communication to the village board, if you'll turn to page 14 in that document.
First of all, there's no SAS infractions that should cover. That's the thing.
Correct. So yeah. So when we look at from an audit standard, so statement on SAS or statement on auditing standards, so statement 115 is addressing anything that we have to report to the village board on that. So we're required by auditing standards to report anything that we feel, or anything that would elevate to the level we call a significant deficiency or material weakness. There were none of those identified during the course of our process. All things here we kind of have at the lowest level comment that we provide, which we call a deficiency for that there. We've discussed these already with the village on that. I think a lot of these things are things that can be resolved, pretty easily on that. The challenging parts in terms of the management letter too, we don't have really a spot outside of the opinion to tell you how good things, you're doing things well on that. It's kind of only pointing out where there's risks or other components to that. So I do want to just highlight that the village was incredibly responsive in terms of getting us information there, and a lot of the recommendations that we do have here are for policies that you already have in place, but perhaps just enhancing the documentation over some of those policies and procedures that you do have in place, just to have more of that audit trail in place for that. But going through those deficiency items on page 14, the first one is something that I'm sure is familiar to the board, having seen this in prior communications there, just the nature of how the restricted accounts are tracked there. From an audit standpoint, part of what we do in this letter is point out where there's potential risk. Anytime you have accounts that are tracked under a separate system, under separate cover for that, there's certain risks associated with that. From our understanding and conversations with the village on this, it's a risk that you've essentially chosen to accept to afford those commissions the flexibility to run their operations in the manner that they need to be functional on that. We didn't identify any issues with that. We looked at the bank reconciliations. We looked at a sample of transactions for the various commissions on that. Just so in this case, it's more pointing out your risk there. I should note also that the management has chosen to include responses in here, so you kind of see what the position is on that as well. Definitely make sure you consider those as you review these as well. From the internal controls over water and sewer billing, you know, when we had our initial discussions with, with the village before, during the selection process, this was one of the things that the village asked us to take some extra time and look at, some of the water and sewer controls or the internal control standpoint there. All in all, we did quite a bit of testing on that area and feel that the controls were quite good on there. We did have a few recommendations here, primarily just being able to go through and have a formal review of the listing of any of the transactional listing on that, and ensuring that any adjustments from a water sewer billing standpoint are properly being reviewed and approved for that. So just a recommendation there.
I'll explain that. I approve each adjustment before she makes them. What the auditor is asking is that I also approve the adjustments after she makes them. Does that make sense to you? So in other words, before manual adjustment occurs in the computer, I have to sign the form, or the committee. If it's a major change, the committee will actually do it. But now what the auditor is saying is, after it's done, print the report at the end of the month of manual changes, and then I have to sign off on that to make sure she didn't add one or delete one or whatever.
Ensuring that what was approved was actually what was supposed to.
Correct.
Also with that comment as well, just a formal process for posting and reviewing any fees that are entered manually. So the example that we looked at were just the new resident fees on that, but just ensuring that anytime there's a manual component to the process there, that those things have a review associated with those as well. From a payroll internal control standpoint, there was really, I think, one instance here that there was some part-time employees who there was not a formal documentation of that. I think for full-time employees, we determined that the approvals and everything were documented and in place for that there. So just ensuring that, for the part-time employees, that there is a, I think, as noted in the response, there was just an oversight on those particular.
A rate of pay.
Yep. From a journal entry standpoint, journal entries are something that we look at, or required to look at as part of the audit process there. Again, just formalizing the review of those journal entries on a monthly basis for that. You're wanting to ensure that when you have a limited number of folks in the the overall finance process for that, we feel that ensuring that documentation of those reviews is really critical on that. So the recommendation would just be to formalize that review. From a check stock standpoint, certain things that were kind of out in the open for that, just recommendation to keep those things in a locked cabinet, just a best practice for safekeeping on the checkbooks there. And then finally, the year-end adjustments. There were certain things that were identified during the course of the audit that were adjusted as part of the adjusting journal entries, which can be found earlier in this document there. In terms of our conversation with the village on that, we look forward to kind of working through providing any of our work papers that we can to assist with that, to ensure that as many things are updated as part of the process going forward on that. I think in the transition year for that, in terms of kind of the expectations of what the auditors have historically done versus what the village has historically done on that, we've worked through some of those questions on that, and we're gonna I think be able to work effectively to, I think, reduce the number of journal entries significantly on that, and be able to go through and do that. There might be some that are expected as part of the process there, but what we'd like to do even as part of that is I'll use capital assets or some of the long-term debt type adjustments as an example there. Those are things that going forward we'll be able to sit down earlier with with staff on and have those discussions.
Earlier in the report, these minor changes, correct?
Correct, yeah, so the journal entries begin on page 5 of this document there, so you'll see overall we had a total of 13 journal entries that were posted as part of the process there. Again, a lot of the entries that are in here are are things that can be updated and I think provided through the process there. Some of these things will simply be audit entries on a regular basis. Some of the commission accounts in terms of being able to take everything from the one system and get them into one place for reporting purposes, but in terms of working through that information, there's something that I again could foresee that comment being able to roll off there, because the information that we have, I think once we were able to determine the specific reports that we needed to pull that information, we're able to be integrated pretty easily into the process there. Overall,
this will be our biggest struggle.
That last piece, yeah. And
to move to cash to modify the pool at the end of the year, that's very difficult for our small staff to do.
Absolutely, and we're like, our position on that is we're gonna try to help in any way we can on that, so, in terms of, similar, Administrator Barber and I this year, for example, on the capital asset listing, sat down and kind of went through and determined, okay, what are you capitalizing this year, what's not being capitalized this year on that, and I think being able to even have a preliminary identification of some of those items will afford us some flexibility going forward to be able to, have something, even if we, do post an entry from the initial trial balances that we receive, posting those as what we call a prepared by client entry there, if we're able to go through and, to work with you on that end, so. That concludes my comments. Just want to say, thank you to, especially to Bob, Jeanette, and Donna for all their assistance on the audit process for that, and be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Anthony? If not, I'd like to make a motion authorizing acceptance of the audit for fiscal year 2018-2019.
Motion on the floor, is there a second? Second, any question? Roll call.
Kraus?
Yes.
Klein?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Wheeling?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Missouri?
Yes.
Thanks, Anthony, give me the peer review and I'll go ahead and get the audit compliant by the 15th. Will do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. All right, the next item is considering authorizing the village administrator to draft a property tax levy ordinance for consideration at the December 9th village board meeting. The tax system is set up so that you collect taxes 1 year after you levy, which impacts the following year's budget, which we have not drafted yet. However, we do know that most of the union employees will be getting a 2% or 2.5% increase. Dispatching costs are going up by 14%, or $12,326, as well as other costs have increased. Please see the enclosed history of the levy and the rates. So it's at the board.
It's entirely up to you guys. You're not gonna get more than 2% until I get leave. But you guys have to decide.
What does that equal out to be?
Only 12.
12,000?
Yeah. Well, Just
The
shy,
board's-
just about 12,000.
The board's kind of stayed with a zero levy, and I'd like to continue that if we could.
Well, what,
It's up to the
I'm sorry,
board.
well, it says solely for public safety. What is that,
The public
what does that
safety,
mean, what is it?
well, the public safety levy, we have like 13 or 14 different levies that we levy. And the lowest percentage of levy that we have compared to what we spend is public safety. So we're levying a property tax that maybe pays for 1 to 2% of the total police budget.
But
So
what's the increase used for? Why are you asking for the increase?
We're
Cars,
probably
capital
used for
equipment,
dispatching.
salaries, what?
Dispatching, more than likely. Cost of dispatching is insane.
Okay, but we don't know what's gonna be used for right now. It's just asking for an increase, but we're not sure what it's going towards.
I would use it toward dispatching, because I know that number's gonna go up. If
Okay.
you wanna say police salaries, you can say that too, because, they're gonna get 2% raise next year.
Well,
Just
just,
depends on how you wanna.
just for me saying
Okay.
public safety is a broad brush, so I didn't know if there was capital improvements, vehicle salaries, what it was specifically gonna be used for. Has anything else been looked at, I guess, in the public safety besides raising the levy?
For example,
Instead of increasing, is there anything been looked at to either cut or streamline or any other avenues or alternatives been explored as opposed to raising the levy?
Can
you
I
have to
make
ask
a,
the chief that question.
can I make a comment? So we're talking about this task force, we talked about it last time, where a police officer's salary is gonna go to that for 4 years. That gives the potential to possibly hire another, but depending on who goes, is there going to be a savings there? Because someone being hired on is probably not gonna make, whatever the person going is going to be now compensated by the task force.
Yeah, that's correct.
So there's a little bit of a savings.
I mean, it'll help, but like
potentially.
Mr. Barber said,
the cost for dispatch has gone up considerably. You know, cost of policing has gone up considerably, everything we do has gone up, but taxes have not raised since X amount of years. We're working out the same budget year after year after year. You know, you can cut your public safety, but that's a decision you have to make.
And the amount of increase that we're looking at here is rather insignificant in the whole picture. I think you're still gonna have to do some cutting next year. My preliminary projections look like general's gonna have to be cut. Your expenses. So 12,000 is a drop in the bucket compared to what we're looking at. We dropped over 100,000 this year in fund balance.
And finance recommendation is keep it at zero for 1 more year and reevaluate 1 year down the road.
That being said, just be prepared, we got cuts to make either way.
That's my recommendation, so.
So I guess, maybe I just don't know. So finance chair is saying leave it, and the staff, his staff, the chief, you, has to increase it?
Overtime in the police department is significant. If we can cut that overtime, that would help. But it's a big number.
He says staff, it usually means the administrator is recommending a 2% increase.
Okay.
And just to be clear, our dispatch company, that is the only one for us. There's no other option, correct?
It would be difficult. They consolidated all the dispatch centers. We're allowed 3 in the county. So there's Westcom, there's Joliet, and then there's us at Laraway. And prices, comparatively speaking, is still considerably low compared to some of the other ones.
There's a possibility that some fire districts will be pulling out of the dispatch center.
This is
We
true.
don't know if that's gonna increase or decrease our costs. I can't imagine it's gonna decrease them if they pull out, because they have other options, we don't. But again, if you wanna keep it at 0, then that's the decision you make, and we will deal with that in March when we do budget.
So I can make a motion in that? I'd like to make a motion to keep the tax levy for the next year at 0.
There's a motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There is a second, any questions? Roll call.
Beecher,
Yes.
Basil,
Yes.
Whalen,
Yes.
Capros,
Yes.
Meyer, yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
Do you wanna do this on November 25th or December 9th? Does it matter to you?
December 9th.
December 9th.
All right, consider a resolution amending the appropriations for fiscal year 18-19, prior fiscal year, for the use of the MFT funds. Due to a higher price of salt, we expended 12,000 more than we were appropriated to use. This requires a supplemental appropriation to be approved for prior year's fiscal year. This is a housekeeping item, but it has to be approved to satisfy IDOT requirements. See enclosed material. Resolution number,
2019-12.
I'd like to make resolution 2019-12, amending the appropriations for fiscal year 18-19 for the use of MFT funds.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any questions? Roll call.
Kraus,
Yes.
Meyer, yes. Capros,
Yes.
Whalen,
Yes.
Basil,
Yes,
Beecher,
Yes.
that ends my report.
Thank you. Public Buildings and Properties, Parks and Recreation Committee, trustee Whalen.
Okay, we've, over the last couple of meetings, we talked about putting this advisory referendum on the ballot for next year. We've approved, or the committee has approved, the question that's on the ballot, and that shall a park district be created in the village of Beecher by its residents that would have the authority to tax and provide park and recreation services and activities for all ages. And that's basically a yes and a no referendum as far as that goes. So, does anybody have any questions about that?
Ordinance 1318.
I'd like to make a motion approving the ordinance
1318.
1318 to put this question on the ballot for next spring.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any questions? Roll call.
Missouri?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Whaling?
Yes.
Caprows?
Yes.
Meyer? Yes. Kraus?
Yes.
That's it.
That's it.
Planning, building, and zoning, you have no report. Public safety committee, trustee Kraus.
Thank you. Consider an ordinance authorizing intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Thorn as lead agency for participation in the Secretary of State Audit Task Force. This was discussed at the last meeting, and this is the formal authorization needed to participate in the program. We will be sending an officer to the task force for 4 years and receive compensation equal to the pay and benefits for that officer. There should be no expense to the village to participate in this program. Ordinance.
1319.
Make a motion, ordinance 1319, authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Thornton as lead agency for participation in the Secretary of State Audit Task Force.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any questions? Roll call.
Kraus?
Yes.
Meyer? Yes. Caprows?
Yes.
Whaling?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Missouri?
Yes.
That's all.
Public Works committee, trustee Forrest.
Consider a motion authorizing payment in the amount of $15,829.40 to Baxter and Women Engineers for construction management services at the wastewater treatment plant pending receipt of IEPA loan funds. I'll go ahead and make a motion authorizing payment in the amount of $15,829.40 to Baxter and Women Engineers for construction management services at the wastewater treatment plant pending receipt of IEPA loan funds.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any questions? Roll call.
Missouri?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Whaling?
Yes.
Caprows?
Yes.
Meyer? Yes. Kraus?
Yes.
Consider a motion for partial payment number 12 to IHC in the amount of $298,791.78 for work performed to date and materials for the wastewater treatment plant improvements pending receipt of IEPA loan funds. I'll go ahead and make a motion approving partial payment number 12 to IHC in the amount of $298,791.78 for work performed to date and materials for the wastewater treatment plant pending IEPA loan funds.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any questions? Roll call.
Kraus?
Yes.
Meyer? Yes. Caprows?
Yes.
Whaling?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Missouri?
Yes.
Consider a motion authorizing the village president to sign all documents necessary to apply for an IEPA public water supply loan program for lead service line replacement and water meter improvements. This is a result of the Robinson engineering program that for their survey that they did. Everything's pretty much in here. The one thing I'll draw everyone's attention to, if you go to your packet, towards the back part. It's a small Excel spreadsheet right after the Robinson page for the Village of Beecher, lead service line replacement. It shows year 1, 2, 3, 4. That has to be done because of the it broken up into individual years. Because for the loan forgiveness, the max of the project for each section is $1 million, and it has to be broken up over the years like that. I know Bob and I had asked about it myself. Why can't we do it in one swoop? You'll see in there it shows the yearly payment and the amount that would be paid over the loan. At the end of the day, this is a $3.3 million project that's going to cost the village about $191,000. The
last question I had, and I think Bob said he was gonna talk to, I just brought it up to him before the meeting started, is if you, this is based on a 20-year loan approval, is if we have to wait the 20 years and do individual payments over the 20 years, or if there's any penalties for early payoff, or if we can just do it in, you know, the matter of a year or two, or 3 or 4, whatever it takes to pay the $191,000. I'm sure they would tack all the interest on for the full 20 years, but just to make sure that there's no penalty for early payment. Other than that, it's a positive thing. I mean, if we can get it, I mean, it's a great thing. If not, then, you know.
And I'd say the most of that 191,000, our share of the cost of the 160 is the meters.
Which we'd be
doing
anyway through our water meter replacement program, so. So anyone have any questions on that before I go ahead and make the motion? Alright. I'll go ahead and make a motion authorizing the village president to sign all documents necessary to apply for an IEPA public water supply loan program for lead service line replacement and water meter improvements.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any questions? Roll call.
Missouri?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Whaling?
Yes.
Caprows?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes. That's my report.
Thank you. Economic Development, Community Relations Committee has no report. Any old business to come before the board?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, we talked about it, at the last meeting, the water and sewer rates. With this, you can kind of see where some of that money would be going, where we talked about the lead service lines. I asked the mayor and the administrator to kind of hold off on this. I came in and talked with the mayor about it. What we're gonna do is, I want everyone to see this in black and white, rather than me trying to explain our situation, where we're gonna be at and what we can actually do over the next coming years. And it's gonna come out and it's gonna be brought up in the 5-year financial plan. So I'm sure our finance chair will have a chance to see it then, in black and white for himself. And I think everybody will be a little more at ease. I sensed a little, you know, hesitancy about what I feel as though we're probably gonna have to do, and need to do. But I think there'll be a little more ease once everybody sees it in black and white, has it in front of them, you know, put out over the next 5 years. So that's all, you know, that's why that's not on the agenda again. But we can discuss it then and make changes to the ordinance that the attorney drafted on our approval at the last meeting. So we'll just take it from there as the time comes along.
And we have until March 1st.
Yes, yeah.
Anything else in our old business? New business to come before the board?
I have something. I would like to thank Public Works for all their help with Lions Park, installing the slide and Joe Cook's bench. They did a wonderful job, and kudos to them. I mean, they do wonderful work for the village.
Any other new business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
Second, any questions? I hope not, roll call.
Excuse me, Kraus?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yes.
Caprows?
Yes.
Whaling?
Yes.
Basil?
Yes.
Missouri?
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. Jim,
Do
thanks.
you want the audit report?
Yeah, if you don't want them, I'll take them.